Haley and I will be teaching the online course of Make Parenting a Pleasure today. We're going to go ahead and get started pretty quickly. This section will be a quick introduction. We'll also be going over child development. You can be glancing to left or right. I do have some notes around me, and I will show you the worksheets that are applicable as we go through this. So first, I want to say welcome, and thank you so much for taking Make Parenting a Pleasure. We have a little slide here. These are our core themes and basic assumptions. Parents who come to parenting classes are special. That is 100% true. It takes a special person to say, parenting is something that I love my children, and I want to take the time to think about how I want to be a parent and maybe learn some new skills to improve your ability of being a parent. So that's great. You're very special for being here. Parents are the foundation of the family, and parenting is the most important and challenging job there is. I don't need to tell you that, I'm sure. Parents care deeply about their children, and parents are the experts about their children. As we go through, if you take all of these courses, you will learn that you absolutely know your child better than anyone else that interacts with them. Therefore, we encourage you to advocate for them and teach them right from wrong and teach other people about who your child is, because you are the expert. Parents have to take care of themselves in order to take care of their children. That is a big part of our self-care section, so I hope that you stay tuned and watch that with us. There is no one right way to be a parent or child. Parenting is a learned process. We teach our children through words and by example. Every parent and every child is unique. It is important to build on strengths, and parents need a support network. These are things that we believe for Make Parenting a Pleasure across the board. So like I've already referenced, we will be going into these a little bit more in depth with our specific topics. So if any of those interest you, feel free to ask your family advocate about which one of those would be the most applicable for our other topics, and they would be happy to either do that with you in home. We also offer classes at our central office or sometimes in the schools as well. Or of course, you can just ask for another link and you can go through it with me. So these are our group norms. If you ever do a class in person, or if you even do them online and there's a group of you taking them all at one time, these are some things that we would go by. So I do want to still go over them because, of course, if you want to discuss anything that is brought up here today, we encourage you to reach out to your family advocate. And this applies to the conversation with your family advocate or with anyone you choose to talk about this with. So what is said in class is confidential. Participation in discussion is voluntary. Be supportive and be non-judgmental and maintain respect. So that's our introduction. And like I said, if you ever have any questions about the material, please feel free to reach out to your family advocate. They are all trained in how to give these classes, and they have the same material that I'm presenting to you today. They would be happy to go over anything you have questions for. Also, normally when you're taking this class in person or in your home, you would be getting a packet of information along with what I'm saying. And I'll be referencing it. I will show it when it's relevant to what we're talking about, but it is really helpful information if you ever want to refer back to the things we talk about here today. So feel free to also ask your family advocate for this information. They can email it to you. They can drop it in your child's cubby. It is really not a problem at all. We all have very easy access to this information. So feel free to reach out if you are interested. So with that being said, let's start talking about child development. So we're going to talk about why child development is important to learn. It helps us to have realistic expectations of our child. If you know at 6 months your child should be doing X, Y, and Z, that's very helpful for you, because if they're not to that point, that means you can advocate for your child and talk to whoever you feel needs to know that your child is struggling in this area. And if you're not sure who to talk to, a pediatrician is always a great place to start, or of course, a family advocate, and we will point you in the right direction. So it gives us this realistic expectations of where should my child be at, and where do we want to go from here. So along with the same 6 months example, you might think at 6 months old, you are tired of changing diapers, but learning about child development, we know at 6 months, we're not ready to move out of that phase. So it kind of gives a little bit of perspective to the parent of where their child's at, and where they need to maybe learn some new behaviors or work on that with their child. It encourages and supports our child's healthy growth. Again, if you don't know the stages of child development, it would be very difficult to advocate for where your child should be. It helps you appreciate your child more because it is always, we love seeing what our children learn, right? But it helps us appreciate them when we're like, oh, wow, you're only, this age and you're already doing all of your ABCs. That is so great. I'm so proud of you. And so it's very important to know that because we love those moments as parents. It helps us know how to communicate in ways our child will understand, which is crucial. It really helps with your relationship with your child. It also helps with your children being able to learn in a more productive way, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So if you communicate in a way that's a little bit too advanced for children, they're not going to understand the topic in the way that you want them to. For example, in the classroom, words that we use is use your walking feet. We don't say don't run because children just hear run. So we say use your walking feet because then they hear walking. So that's an example of a way to communicate where it's appropriate for your child's development. Another one is be aware of what to watch for and when to get help if you're concerned about our child's normal growth and development. And like I said, it helps us have realistic expectations for our child. So if a child's not meeting a mark and that's a concern to you, you are always welcome to reach out and just get some more information on maybe how you can help your child get to that point. I'm certainly not saying by any stretch that if your child doesn't meet every child development mark, that your child is behind or that you need to reach out. Kids learn at different paces across the board. If they're within a couple months of things, it's no big deal, generally speaking. But if it's something that concerns you, you're the parent and you know your child best. So I really encourage you to reach out. It's important to understand child development because parents are the best resources on their children. I keep jumping ahead of myself, but you know your children the best, and you're going to be the #1 resource for them getting the help that they need or the encouragement that they need. Development is progressive, or cumulative rather, and that means that you can't learn how to spell if you haven't learned how to talk. That's generally not the order that things are going to happen, right? You learn one thing after the other and progress through to learning the things that we as adults know how to do. Development also happens all the time, especially at this age, and we're going to talk about this more, but the ages of your children when they're in Head Start, so anywhere from the moment that they're born to 5, they're soaking up so much information all the time, and we know this as parents. You see how quickly they learn how to do basic things, like things we probably take for granted, like read and use a spoon, things like that, the things that they will use the rest of their lives, they're learning right now and they're learning it very quickly. So these are the different kinds of development, and they make up one child, right? There's self-care, physical development, social development, behavioral, cognitive, language, and moral. These are all things that they learn by observing. Some of it is by curriculum, maybe something more in like a classroom setting, but so much of what they learn at this age is just kind of how to interact with the world. And they're getting that from you at home, they're getting that from the park, from school, really anywhere you take them, they're putting 2 and 2 together about the entire world that they live in and how they're going to interact with it. Here's 5 facts about child development. Children are on a journey toward independence, right? Hopefully. Most adults are independent, and that's always what children are building towards. They're figuring out the world so much all of the time that eventually they navigate it all by themselves. Young children are self-centered, which is not the same as selfish. And really what I mean by that is that when you're that young, of course you don't have a concept of the needs of others because you're still trying to figure out what your needs are. And they just don't have that ability quite yet to be selfless and care for the other person. But we start to see that develop around this age. We start to see the idea of sharing develop, for example, which makes them self-centered, but they're not selfish. They just don't know better quite yet. And it's important for us to teach them, but in the correct way, which we'll be talking about discipline and helpful ways to teach a child, especially at this stage of development that they're currently in, a little bit later on. But again, if you'd like to learn it, reach out to your family advocate or get the link to the other video. There are many things that adults know that children do not, which sounds really obvious, but sometimes we just forget. We take for granted the knowledge that we have. We forget that not everyone knows how to fold a shirt. And of course, we're not asking our toddlers to fold shirts for us because they would have no idea how to do it. They'd probably wad it up, and then it would really be on us if we got angry that they hadn't done it correctly, because it was probably premature to expect that of a toddler. Young children do not understand the world the way adults do. And that's kind of something we've already been talking about. They're learning the way the world works. They're putting it all together every day, all the time. So they can't understand it the way that we do. Every child and every parent has his or her own temperaments. This is one of my favorite points to talk about, because I think so often as a society, we've decided that if a child's having a tantrum, that's something that needs to be punished. And now I know that all tantrums have different contexts. They can all come from different things. They could be in reaction to a lot of different things, but a lot of it is just that children and adults have different temperaments. Even I have different temperaments from you. Something that really bothers me might not bother you at all, and vice versa. And children, as we talked about, are self-centered. So some things really upset them. They truly do upset them, that probably won't upset them as adults. But for the time being, it does upset them and it makes them sad. And if that happens, of course, we don't want to tell them that it's not okay to be sad. Maybe we want to express that this isn't necessarily an important thing to be sad about. It's not worth it to be sad about this thing. But of course, we're not going to say sadness is bad, because as adults, we get sad. And that's something that's not going to go away. So we really want to teach our children at a young age a healthy way to handle these negative emotions. So let's go over, I just want to show you real quick that on this worksheet, we do have a worksheet for core themes. We also have ones for the basic assumptions that we went over, the 5 facts. We have some basic definitions. And so it's really great to have this information on hand if you do want it. I just wanted to kind of touch on what's in this packet that you do have access to if you'd like it. So let's go back. Let's learn something new. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the worksheets that we have here. There's a lot of information at the beginning of the packet, but towards the end, we do have some things that you can fill out to make the information a little bit more applicable to your life. So we have temperamental characteristics, and that's talking about rating your child on a scale of active to quiet on a lot of different things. Like, for example, one is activity level. And that's how much does your child wiggle and move around when you read to him when he's at the table or when he is playing by himself. And none of this is conclusive on where your child is at developmentally, but it is something that could be helpful for you to kind of get a gauge of where your child is at and where you want to go. It could help you set some goals as far as your child's development goes. We also do have a developmental checklist on here, and like I said, kids vary, especially at this age. It goes from 9, 10, 11, 12 months, so that's only 30 days on average between these things. Whereas, I don't know about you, but if you wanted to teach me something that I didn't know very well, let's say long division, it would probably take me more than 30 days to be an expert at it. So give yourself and your child some grace when you're reading through these. Nothing is set in stone. It's just something to kind of gauge where you're at, and again, set some goals. Really, this packet is just something that I'm really advocating for you guys to get, because child development is so important and it's going to apply so much to the rest of things that we're learning. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. Wherever you got this email from, whoever emailed it to you, feel free to email back with some questions, as long as it came from our agency. If you're just passing it along, maybe reach out to a professional. It can be your child's teacher or your family advocate. All of those are great resources to kind of get a gauge of where your child's at. You can also get the packet, like I said. And I really encourage you to keep coming back to more of our Make Parenting a Pleasure sections. So this is the first one, just a quick introduction and a brief overview of child development. We're also going to talk a lot about self-care and stress, long-term stress, anger management, communication. We're going to go over some parenting toolbox kits, which basically just means some tools you can have to kind of help with meltdowns when you're mid-meltdown, maybe stop them before they happen, things like that. And we also will talk about challenging behaviors and discipline. So if you're interested in any of those, feel free to reach out and I would definitely get you connected so you can keep learning. All right, I think that is all we have for this first section. So thank you so much.